Imagine this. You've spent years saving, cutting back on vacations, skipping nights out, and finally, you're standing in front of your dream home. But as you sign the final papers, a chilling thought hits you. You might have just made the worst financial decision of your life. Because in 2026, the American dream is being rewritten. And the new reality? Renting might actually be smarter, financially, strategically, and emotionally, than owning a home. For decades, homeownership was the ultimate sign of success. It meant stability, wealth, and pride. But the world has changed, fast. Mortgage rates that once hovered near 3% now flirt with 7% or higher. Home prices are up over 40% since 2020 in many cities. And for the first time in generations, younger Americans are asking a question their parents never did. Is owning a home even worth it anymore? Today we're diving deep into the numbers, the psychology, and the reality behind the housing market. We'll explore why renting might not be the waste of money you've been told it is, and why for millions of people, it could be the smartest move in 2026. There's an unspoken rule in America, one that's been passed down from parents to children, generation after generation. Buy a house as soon as you can. Renting is just throwing money away. But that rule was written for a different world. A world where homes were affordable, interest rates were low, and job stability was a given. A world that doesn't exist anymore. Because in 2026, the math, the mindset, and the meaning of homeownership have changed entirely. And for millions of Americans, the smarter, more flexible, and more financially sound choice might just be renting. To understand why, we need to go back to the origins of this belief. Why buying became the cornerstone of the American dream. After World War II, returning soldiers came home to a booming economy, affordable mortgages, and an expanding middle class. The GI Bill allowed veterans to buy homes with little down payment. Builders mass-produced suburban developments, and owning property became synonymous with stability and status. Buying wasn't just a financial move, it was cultural. It meant permanence, roots, family, belonging. And for decades, that dream worked. Home prices rose steadily, mortgage payments stayed low, people built equity, wealth, and a sense of pride. But now, in 2026, that once unshakable dream is starting to look like a financial mirage. Let's paint a picture. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate today sits around 6.7%. Home prices, even after cooling slightly in some markets, remain historically high. The median U.S. home price is roughly $435,000. For a modest 3-bedroom in most major cities, you're looking at $500,000 or more. Put 10% down, $50,000, and you're still borrowing $450,000. With today's rates, that's over $2,900 in principal and interest every month. Add property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and you're well over $300 monthly. Now compare that to renting the same home. Across many metro areas, that house rents for about $2,300. That's an $800 difference every month, nearly $10,000 a year. And that's not an abstract figure. For a generation already struggling under student loans, car payments, and the rising cost of living, that's the difference between financial breathing room and constant anxiety. So let's challenge the old mantra. Is renting really throwing money away? When you rent, yes, you're paying for a roof that isn't yours. But you're also buying freedom. You're buying time. You're buying predictability. When you own a home, your monthly payment is just the beginning. You're responsible for every creak in the floor, every burst pipe, every broken appliance. You're subject to property tax hikes, HOA fees, roof replacements, and insurance increases. A 2025 study by HomeAdvisor found that the average homeowner spent $6,300 on maintenance and repairs last year alone, up nearly 30% since 2020. That's money renters don't have to think about. And when something breaks, renters make one call to their landlord. Homeowners make one call to their wallet. The traditional argument for owning has always been equity. At least you're building something, they say. You'll own it one day. But equity is not guaranteed wealth. It's leverage, built on the assumption that home values will continue to rise, and that assumption is shaky now. In the 2020s, the housing market defied gravity. Fueled by pandemic stimulus, record low rates, and remote work, prices skyrocketed 40 to 50% in just a few years. But now we've hit the ceiling. Wages haven't kept up. affordability is at its lowest level since 1989. And with interest rates high, even small dips in prices don't help much, because financing costs remain punishingly expensive. This is the era of price stickiness. Homes don't crash, they just quietly stagnate. Take Phoenix, Austin, or Boise, once the darlings of the post-pandemic boom. Prices there surged up to 70% between 2020 and 2022. Today they're flat or slightly down, but still far too expensive for new buyers. That means homeowners who bought near the peak aren't building wealth. They're stuck. They can't sell without taking a loss, and they can't refinance without paying more. They're trapped in golden cages, nice homes, but no financial mobility. Renters, meanwhile, can pivot. They can follow opportunity. They can move cities, downsize, upgrade, or simply leave when it makes sense. They have agility, something increasingly valuable in a volatile economy. And that flexibility isn't just practical, it's profitable. Let's do the math. Say you rent for $300 a month, while a similar home would cost $300 to own. If you invest that $800 monthly difference into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund averaging 7% annual returns, after 10 years, you'd have around $138,000. That's money you can access anytime. No closing costs, no realtor fees, no 30-year commitment. Compare that to a homeowner who, after 10 years, may have built $150,000 in home equity, if prices even rise that much. But when they want that money, they have to sell, pay fees, and uproot their life. It's not that homeownership is bad, it's just no longer automatically better. And for many people, the supposed benefits of owning are illusions. For instance, tax deductions for mortgage interest, they only help if you itemize, and fewer than 10% of Americans do. Property appreciation? It varies wildly by location. In some regions, values have barely moved in years, while taxes and insurance keep rising. And then there's the emotional toll. For past generations, a mortgage was a symbol of adulthood. Today, it's often a source of stress. Imagine a couple in their early 30s, eager to buy. They save for years, finally scrape together a down payment, and close on a $480,000 home in 2026. A year later, property taxes jump. Insurance premiums rise due to new climate risk zones. A water heater bursts. Suddenly, their $3,000 mortgage turns into a $3,600 monthly burden, and their dream home feels like a financial trap. This isn't an isolated story. It's happening everywhere, from the suburbs of Denver to the coasts of Florida. And climate risk is a growing factor. In states like California and Florida, some insurers are pulling out altogether. Premiums are doubling. In Louisiana, some homeowners can't even find coverage at all. That means your asset could suddenly become a liability no one wants to insure or buy. Meanwhile, renters don't face those risks. They don't worry about property values, market cycles, or hurricane insurance. They can pack up and go. That mobility is wealth in itself, because wealth isn't just about numbers, it's about options. In 2026, more people are realizing that the freedom to move, change, and adapt is more valuable than a deed with your name on it. It's a shift in mindset, especially among millennials and Gen Z. They're not chasing their parents' dream of a suburban house with a yard. They're chasing flexibility, travel, career growth, and experiences. They value liquidity over leverage. And technology is making that lifestyle possible. With remote work normalized, people can live anywhere. Renting allows them to move between cities, countries, or even continents without the weight of a mortgage. Co-living spaces, digital nomad visas, and short-term rentals have redefined what home means. You don't need to own a house to feel at home anymore, and the market knows it. Developers are shifting focus from selling homes to renting them. Entire build-to-rent communities are emerging. Modern, amenity-packed neighborhoods designed for long-term renters who want stability without ownership. In places like Dallas, Tampa, and Atlanta, these communities are booming. Families are renting 3-bedroom homes with yards, garages, and modern appliances without ever signing a 30-year mortgage. The stigma of renting is fading fast. Even high earners are joining the movement. A 2025 survey by Zillow found that 42% of Americans under 40 say they prefer renting for flexibility and lifestyle reasons. Among 6-figure earners, that number jumps even higher. Renting is no longer a temporary phase, it's becoming a long-term strategy. Of course, there's nuance. Buying still makes sense for some. If you plan to stay in one place for decades, if you have stable income, And if you can comfortably afford the payments, ownership can still be a solid investment. Real estate remains a hedge against inflation, and long-term appreciation is still likely in high-demand areas. But what's changed is the default. Owning a home used to be the obvious goal. Now it's just one option among many. In this new era, financial literacy isn't about following tradition. It's about running the numbers for your own life. It's about asking questions like, how much flexibility do I value? What's the real opportunity cost of ownership? Could I build more wealth through other investments? For many, the answers point toward renting, not as a compromise, but as a choice. And that's what makes 2026 so pivotal. It's not just a housing story, it's a generational transformation. The American dream used to be about owning, now it's about choosing. Choosing where you live, and how your money works for you. Because in this economy, the smartest investors aren't necessarily the ones holding the deeds. They're the ones holding the options. And maybe, just maybe, the next generation of millionaires won't come from homeowners, but from renters who invested the difference. Renting isn't throwing money away. It's throwing away the illusion that ownership is the only path to success. It's choosing control over confinement, liquidity over liability, freedom over furniture. And in 2026, that might just be the smartest decision you'll ever make. According to Zillow's 2026 Housing Outlook, over 42% of Americans under 40 now say they prefer renting for flexibility and financial predictability. And major developers are responding, building rental communities with the amenities of ownership but without the debt. That's not a trend, that's a cultural shift. If you're renting in 2026, you can still build wealth, just differently. Automate your investments. Take the money you'd have spent on mortgage premiums and deposit it monthly into index funds or high-yield ETFs. Negotiate leases strategically. Longer terms can lock in rates before inflation kicks in. Stay geographically flexible. Follow job opportunities and cost of living advantages, not housing hype. Remember, a home isn't an investment, it's a lifestyle choice. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate you watching. If you found this useful, a like would be fantastic, and subscribing helps me keep creating content you'll hopefully enjoy. Please share your experiences and any questions in the comments. I always try to read and respond. Your support keeps this channel going. Until our next video, take care and have a wonderful day.